There are two versions of your front porch 5 years from now. In one of them, you are standing at a garden centre every single April, buying the same annuals you bought last April and the April before that, filling the same pots with the same soft, tender plants that will be dead by October, spending real money on something you will throw away again in 6 months. In the other version, you planted 6 specific container combinations exactly once, years ago, and every single spring they come back on their own, fuller, denser, and more beautiful than the year before, without you spending another $1 or another Saturday at the garden centre ever again. The only difference between those two futures is not luck, and it is not a green thumb. It is knowing which perennials actually thrive in a container long term and knowing the one part of container care that almost every gardening article completely skips over. The part that decides whether your containers survive winter at all or quietly die in the pot while you are not even watching. I have been growing perennials, including in containers, for over 15 years, and today I am giving you 6 combinations I have personally kept alive and thriving in the same pots for years at a time. Alright, let's jump right in. Whether you are gardening in a chilly zone 4 or a milder zone 8, every combination on this list works for you, though a couple of them need one extra step depending on how cold your winters get, and I will tell you exactly when that applies. Drop your USDA Hardiness Zone in the comments right now so I can give you advice specific to your exact conditions. Here is the one thing almost nobody tells you before you plant a perennial in a pot instead of the ground. A perennial growing in a container is genuinely less cold hardy than the exact same plant growing in the ground, often by a full hardiness zone or more, because the roots in a pot are exposed to freezing air on all sides instead of being insulated by the earth. Miss that one detail, and every single combination on this list can die over winter, even though the plant itself is perfectly hardy for your zone. Stick around, because combination number 3 is the one most gardeners get completely backwards, thinking bigger and fuller at planting time is better, when it is actually the opposite. And combination number 5 involves a step most people accidentally undo every single fall without realizing it is the exact thing that was supposed to make the container better next year. Combination number 1 is for full sun and dry conditions, a mix of sedum, creeping thyme, and a small ornamental grass like blue fescue. Here is the mistake almost everyone makes with this exact combination. They plant it in regular all-purpose potting mix, the same bag they use for their tomatoes and their annual flowers. Here is the biological consequence. Sedum and creeping thyme are both adapted to lean, fast-draining, almost gravelly soil, and standard potting mix holds far too much moisture around their roots, especially through a rainy spring or a humid summer, which leads to root and crown rot that can wipe out the whole planting by its second year. The actual solution is to amend your potting mix with coarse sand or perlite, roughly 1 part grit to 3 parts potting mix, so water moves through quickly instead of sitting around the roots. Here is the hidden secret. Use an unglazed terracotta pot instead of plastic or glazed ceramic for this specific combination if you can, because terracotta is naturally porous and lets excess moisture evaporate out through the sides of the pot itself, which matters enormously for plants this sensitive to wet roots. Combination number 2 is for shade, a classic pairing of a compact Hosta variety, Astilbe, and a shade-loving fern like Japanese painted fern. The mistake here is choosing a small, narrow pot because it fits the shady corner better. Here are the biological facts. Shade does not mean the soil stays moist automatically, and a small container has a small volume of soil that dries out surprisingly fast, especially with 3 thirsty, moisture-loving plants competing for it, and hostas and Astilbe both sulk badly, sometimes permanently, after even one serious drying out event. The actual solution is to use the largest container your space can reasonably hold, because more soil volume means more buffer against drying out between waterings. Here is the hidden secret nobody mentions. Slugs are drawn to hostas in containers just as much as in the ground, and a container actually makes it easier to protect them because a simple strip of copper tape wrapped around the rim of the pot creates a mild electrical deterrent that stops slugs from crossing over into the container at all. Combination number 3, the one I promised you, is coral bells, also called heuchera, paired with creeping jenny and a genuinely dwarf conifer, something like a dwarf globe blue spruce. And here is the mistake almost every single gardener makes without realizing it. At planting time, they either skip the conifer entirely, thinking it is unnecessary for a flower container, or they plant everything crowded in tight because a fuller looking pot feels more satisfying on day one. Here is the biological consequence of both of those choices. Without the conifer, the container has absolutely nothing to look at through the winter months once the heuchera dies back and the creeping jenny goes dormant. So what felt like a beautiful pot in June becomes a bare, sad-looking pot in January. And when everything is crowded in too tightly at planting, the plants spend their first year fighting each other for root space instead of establishing properly, which actually makes the whole combination weaker and slower to fill in over the following years, the opposite of what a fuller planting was supposed to achieve. The actual solution is to always include one small evergreen anchor plant in any perennial container meant to look good year-round, and to plant everything with real spacing between root balls at installation, trusting that the combination will fill in beautifully by its second season rather than trying to force that fullness on day one. Tell me honestly in the comments, how many of you have a container sitting on your porch right now that looks completely empty and sad through the winter because there is nothing evergreen in it? If you are not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button right now. This channel puts out real, zone-specific gardening content just like this every single week, and it takes about 2 seconds, completely free. Combination number 4 is a full sun classic, a compact daylily variety, catmint, and a low-growing sedum as a spiller around the edge. The mistake here is treating the daylily like it needs the same generous spacing you would give it in the ground. Here are the biological insights. And this one might sound like it contradicts what I told you about combination number 3 a moment ago, but it is not actually contradictory. In the ground, daylilies genuinely do need real space to expand their root clump over years. But in a container, that same clump has a hard physical boundary it can never expand past. So a daylily planted with in-ground spacing in mind ends up looking sparse and lonely in the pot for its first 2 or 3 years, when it could have been planted a bit closer to the catmint and sedum from the very start and looked balanced immediately, since the container itself is already limiting how large that clump can ever get regardless of the spacing you give it on day one dot. The ultimate solution is to plant daylilies in containers noticeably closer together with their companions than you would in the ground, because the pot's physical limit is doing the spacing restriction for you already. Combination number 5 is the one I warned you about, a small ornamental grass like dwarf fountain grass, purple coneflower, and black-eyed Susan, a beautiful mini prairie in a pot. Here is the mistake almost every gardener makes completely by accident every single fall. As the season winds down, the coneflower and black-eyed Susan blooms fade and turn brown, and the natural instinct is to deadhead everything and cut it all back to tidy the pot up for winter. Here's the science behind it. Those seed heads are exactly what makes this specific combination improve year after year on its own, because as they dry on the plant through fall and winter, they drop seed directly into the container, and a portion of that seed germinates the following spring, thickening and naturally refreshing the planting without you doing anything at all. Deadhead everything in the fall the way you would with a typical flower bed, and you accidentally cancel out the entire self-improving mechanism that makes this combination worth planting in the first place. What actually works is to leave the seed heads standing through fall and winter and only clean up dead foliage in very early spring, right before new growth resumes. Here is the hidden secret. Those same seed heads that are quietly reseeding your container are also feeding finches and other seed-eating birds all winter long. So leaving them up is not just a gardening trick, it turns your porch pot into a small winter wildlife feeder at the same time. Hit that like button right now if any of this is changing how you are going to treat your containers this fall, because every single tells YouTube to put this in front of more gardeners about to make this exact mistake. Combination number 6 is a Mediterranean style container, lavender, dianthus, and creeping thyme, and this is the one combination on the list where your zone genuinely changes the instructions, so listen closely. In zone 7 and warmer, this combination can often survive winter in the pot with minimal fuss. But in zone 6 and colder, here is the mistake almost everyone in that range makes, leaving a beautiful ceramic or resin pot outside all winter the same way they would with a plastic one. Here are the biological secrets. In freezing temperatures, water inside a porous or moisture-retaining pot material expands as it turns to ice, and that expansion can physically crack ceramic, ornamental resin, or thin plastic pots, sometimes destroying the container itself, even if the plants inside would have technically survived the cold. On top of that, lavender specifically hates having wet roots through a cold winter even more than it minds the cold itself. Here's what actually works for Zone 6 and colder is to either move this specific container into an unheated garage or shed for winter, somewhere it stays cold but protected from direct freezing and thawing cycles, or to plant it in a thick-walled, genuinely frost-resistant container built to handle repeated freezing. Here is the hidden secret. If you are in Zone 6 or colder and cannot move the pot at all, simply grouping it tightly against your house foundation on the side that gets the least winter wind and wrapping the outside of the pot in burlap recreates a surprising amount of the insulation the ground would normally provide and often makes the difference between this combination surviving or not. Alright, let's run back through all 6 quickly. Sedum, thyme, and grass need lean, gritty soil and a breathable terracotta pot. Hosta, Astilbe, and Fern need your largest available container and copper tape against slugs. Heuchera, creeping jenny, and a dwarf conifer need that evergreen anchor plus real spacing at planting, not overcrowding. Daylily, catmint, and sedum actually want closer spacing in a pot than they would ever get in the ground. Grass, coneflower, and black-eyed Susan need their seed heads left standing all winter to self-renew, and lavender, dianthus, and thyme need a frost-resistant pot or winter protection in Zone 6 and colder. Before you go, drop your USDA Hardiness Zone in the comments so I can give you advice specific to your exact garden. And tell me, which one of these 6 combinations are you planting first? I read every single comment, and I promise you, your answer might be exactly what convinces someone else reading through them to finally stop replanting the same annuals every spring.